Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagar Jatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopeshu Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mokam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langaite Vim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Gurum Dinakaram. Hare Krishna everyone. Welcome to the final chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So far we covered all the chapters. Can you hear me clearly or is there any noise?
No, Prabhuji, we can hear you well.
Okay. Because I have a small fan because of heat. Just have a fan. Just wanted to check once. Okay.
No, we cannot hear the fan. Your voice is perfect.
Good notice. So we are in the final chapter. The title is Perfection of Renunciation. Krishna will summarize the entire Bhagavad Gita in one final chapter here. He's going to give his conclusion on all the sections of Bhagavad Gita and final summary of everything in this chapter, in these final words of Krishna to Arjuna. So it is the longest chapter in Bhagavad Gita with 78 verses. There's a lot of themes, almost 4 plus 8, 11 themes in this one chapter. So far we had 5, 6, 7 themes. There's like 11 themes. So the first theme, covering verses 1 to 12, is a summary of entire Karma Yoga, which is first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So how acting with detachment is the true renunciation. So again, Krishna compares, just like in 5th chapter. Remember, 4th and 5th is Karma Yoga. In 5th chapter, he begins with comparison between sannyasa and tyaga. So the same comparison with some more additional conclusion and details is given in this. So acting in detachment is the true renunciation. That's the summary of it. And the second section, or the second theme, actions directed by super soul bring freedom from reaction. So this is the summary of the last 6 chapters, wherein Krishna discusses primarily the modes of nature and how one can come out of it with the help of super soul. So Jnana Yoga section of Bhagavad Gita, which is the third section of Bhagavad Gita, is summarized here. Again, further discussion on the topic of modes in the third theme, which is entanglement of the modes, how modes entangle the Baddha Jiva in the material existence. Again, a little more elaboration on Karma Yoga, again, the fourth theme, how worship of the Lord through one's own occupational duties through Varnashrama Dharma is true renunciation and elevates the Jiva so that he gets rid of all the reactions. or the freedom from reactions. So more or less, the first four cover the first and the last few chapters of Bhagavad Gita. And then again, Jnana Yoga, how a Jiva can elevate from Jnana Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. That is discussed in 49 to 55. So there are levels of advancement a conditioned soul goes through. First is how to act in such a way that he doesn't take new reactions. Right? So that is freedom from reaction. Right? So after freedom from reaction, one has to focus on the goal, which is through the practice of Jnana Yoga, one can achieve Brahman realization. But Krishna says that is not the end of it. One can use the platform of Brahman realization to advance to Bhakti Yoga. So this is the ladder method of elevation that one can pursue. He can be from Karma Kandi, he can become a Karma Yogi. From Karma Yogi, he can become a Jnana Yogi. From Jnana Yogi, he can become a Bhakti Yogi. So this is the ladder method of elevating oneself until achieving the highest perfection in Bhakti Yoga. And Krishna offers the alternative elevator method where the Jiva directly engages in pure devotion service. So that is described in 56 to 60. And then after that, how the Jiva can surrender to the super soul in this elevating through devotion service. And then Krishna discusses about the most confidential of all knowledge. The confidentiality of knowledge is about how much Krishna reveals the relationship between the Jiva and Paramatma. So Krishna will reveal. So any chapter that talks about confidential knowledge, it says like this is the more confidential knowledge, this is the most confidential knowledge. It is revealing the knowledge about the relationship between Jiva and Paramatma. So that's what is revealed in 64 to 66, which is the summary of 8th, 9th chapters. And with this, Krishna summarized the entire Bhagavad Gita. Now he instructs the importance of sharing this knowledge and importance of studying this knowledge. Sharing is preaching, so studying is swadhyaya, and reading the scripture and trying to see how he can apply, reflecting on it, so all of that. And after hearing all of this knowledge, the summary of all the knowledge, the importance of sharing and hearing this knowledge, Arjuna, Krishna would ask him actually, are your doubts completely gone now? Arjuna says, yes, all my illusion is gone. And he is firmly fixed. And he says, I'm going to surrender myself to you and follow your instructions as you have spoken. And Bhagavad Gita ends with Sanjaya's predictions on what is going to come, which is basically wherever Krishna is there, wherever Arjuna is there, there is going to be opulence and victory and all good fortune, which is Arjuna represents the conditioned soul who surrendered to Krishna. Krishna represents the Supreme Lord. So wherever there is Supreme Lord and a surrendered Jiva to the Supreme Lord, there is going to be complete victory in the material existence. Victory means what? It's not about just winning the war. It's about winning the purpose of life, which is to go back to Godhead. So that is the overall themes in this chapter. Now we will delve into each of these themes and take some lessons because it's a large chapter. We are not going to go in depth. Some important shlokas we will read through because they're really very powerful verses. Yeah. So the first section, the first four themselves talk about Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. So Krishna, so this section is titled Acting with Detachment, is the true form of renunciation. And that is how one acts in this world in such a way that it will free one from reactions. So Krishna analyzes the two aspects, which is sannyas, giving up the work in itself, versus tyaga, giving up the fruits of the work. So what do you think is the right thing for the conditioned soul? Anybody want to answer? So there are two ways of renunciation. Giving up the work itself, which is sannyasa. Sannyasa means not acting in this world for fulfilling one's desires. Tyaga, which is acting in such a way that one is not trying to enjoy the fruits. Tyaga means, giving up the enjoyment mentality in the work. So do your duty only for the sake of it, not to enjoy the fruits of it. Right? Nirashir, nirmama. Yeah. So what is the right thing for one who is...
The second one, Prabhuji, like renouncing the fruits of our actions.
Why?
That's where we get attached to. We just have to do our work, and if we renounce the act, renounce the fruit, or do not worry about the fruit of the thing, then we don't attach ourselves, and we don't do it for our selfish intention, but only by God's instruction. We just perform our activity based on our varnashram or wherever we are placed.
Suppose you are putting your best effort, sincerely working at office, but you didn't get any promotion or advancement in salary this year. How do you take that? For example, right? Just a one correlation to our own life, right? How do we act in the spirit of tyaga when such a thing happens? So you don't worry about basically this promotion. We accept that is not in our hand, right? We do what is in our hand. We don't worry about what is not in our hand. What we get is what is sanctioned by the Lord, right? You may work very hard, sincerely, but at this point in time, you are not entitled to certain fruits. So you don't worry about it. So the standard example that we should all remember is the story of the farmers in a village who collect their grains every year and put that in the granary. You all remember? Anybody?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji, device.
Device, basic story, right? So
Yeah.
here you pour the grain from the top. For your own use, you take the grains from the bottom. Suppose you have the best crop this year and you worked very hard, got the best first class grains. You put the best grains into the granary from the top. And when you try to take out the grains for your own consumption this year, you got very stale grains. Because 5 years back, when you put those grains, you were not as good as now you are. In terms of how you cultivated, the rains were not there. So what you are getting now is based on what you did in the past. So the lesson is, you keep trying your best and putting the best grains, your good actions will catch up in time. You see the point? Your results should not determine what you put in terms of your effort. If you feel discouraged because you are not getting the fruits that you wanted, in spite of putting the best effort, what happens? You will continue to produce, you won't put best effort, and you will keep dropping the bad grains, and you will never improve the grains that you get. So you keep giving your best, right? So that's how it is. So whenever we don't get what we expect, this example you should remember so that we don't become attached to the fruits. Because when you attach to the fruits, your mind is focused on the fruit. Your mind is not focused on the action. So if you are working for your office, if you're always thinking about what others will say about my work or what my manager give me as a result, if all the focus is on the fruit, then the focus is not on the work itself. So you have to focus on giving your best. Then the results will naturally follow. That is Karma Yoga. Don't be attached to the fruits. Do your work as a means to purify yourself. That is a higher consciousness. At a basic level, it is, I don't work for my enjoyment, but a higher consciousness, the idea is that I work so that it purifies me. So the higher motivation is because by following the instructions, by following the proper conscious, by having the right consciousness as and performing my duties sincerely, I purify my existence. Okay? So that is the motivation. So does that mean nobody should give up the work and take sannyas? Anyone?
No, Prabhuji, because not doing the work also is sin, as per Krishna.
Not doing work is?
So we have to do our duty without going out of the duty also, it's a sin.
It is sin. But what about sannyasis who give up all the, so giving up the work means giving up the work
Yeah,
that fulfills one's desires.
see, in case of sannyasi, because in general the senses cannot be stopped working, it has to keep working. In case of sannyasis, they're not using their senses in terms of any work, but they are ideally focusing on one thing, either Brahman or Brahman, Paramatma maybe. But unless and until we engage our senses in some other activity, it's easy. But sannyasis, there might be a fall down also. It's not guaranteed.
Yes.
So Prabhu, the fully realized souls, though like the sannyasis, though they can renounce, but since just to maintain the social,
Dad, can we put the other water balloon?
I think
Everybody, and then you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
So Prabhu, I think in 5th chapter, though the sannyasis, though they are fully or self-realized souls, though they can, they don't have to do their occupational duties, but since to maintain social order, they follow the activities so that everyone else follows them.
But they're not going to, sannyasi is not going to work for Microsoft or anything like that.
Yeah.
Their works is not fulfilling the desires, one's own desires. The other important thing is a person is qualified to take sannyas after purifying his senses from the desire to enjoy the fruits. Okay. So if suppose a person has elevated to a level of consciousness where he is not pushed to work under the modes of nature. Right now, we are all pushed to work under the modes of nature. Even Arjuna was like that. Arjuna is a Kshatriya by nature. For him, sannyas is not the right order of action. Why? Because he's still, of course, he's a pure devotee, but for him, the right order of action is to engage in the warfare. He should not give up. He will act according to his modes. Whether he gives up this fight or not, he is going, because one is forced by the modes. See, that is the point. So as long as his jiva is forced by the modes, he will continue to engage in fruity work. So as long as one is not purified, he should not take to sannyas. You see, an order of purification is required to take before one takes to sannyas. So he has to engage his senses appropriately, purify his senses, and then he can actually take sannyas. Okay, so that It's not for everybody. Sannyas is not for everybody. Sannyas means giving up work for fruitive enjoyment. That's not for everybody. But it doesn't mean that nobody can do it. It can be done when one is appropriately qualified. Okay? Yeah.
Prabhuji, one question, Prabhu.
Hmm?
Here, can we also say sannyasi is fully renounced of the fruitive results, but still doing the work?
Yes. Yeah. We can also say like that. If a
Yeah.
person like a pure devotee who is engaged in building temples,
Yeah.
yeah, that is also a proper way of sannyas.
Okay, thank you.
So sannyas is giving up work which is ordained by the modes of nature, right? Varnashrama. Yeah. So sannyas is above varnashrama. That's why they say sannyas is above varnashrama. It doesn't belong to one of the varnas. Or the last order of ashrams. Okay. So in 7 to 10, Krishna describes about even renunciation can be done in mode of ignorance if it is not done with, right? So any action, right, when done without proper consciousness, it's not fruitful, right? So even renunciation can be in mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Krishna keeps giving these hints so that we can check back our own actions in the past and see where our modes are and improvise ourselves, right? So the whole framework of this modes of nature, Krishna describing different aspects in different modes, is to drive the point that to let the conditioned soul understand where he stands, so that he can, from that state, he can elevate himself to the higher standard of life. So let's quickly look at this. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If one gives up his prescribed duties because of illusion, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Illusion means, hey, this work is, I'm not going to do this work. This is not good for me. Okay, illusion. So I heard of one IAS officer who, in the name of practicing yoga, he gave up his job, and simply he is trying to do. He went to Vrindavan and acted like a dressed like a gopi. He's an IAS officer. Imagine. So just for illusion, it's a kind of illusion completely. No rhyme or reason for it. So that is mode of ignorance. So, and then one who gives up duties, thinking them to be troublesome, out of fear, no, I don't want to do this because it's going to cause me more pain, or fear of bodily discomfort. So that is renunciation in the mode of passion. We may give 100 reasons why we gave up, but giving up your prescribed duties under these conditions is giving renunciation in the mode of passion. We hear about devotees who give up their duties, without properly arranging for the family. All the time we hear, right? So they actually fall in these categories, by the way. One should not give up as long as one is, not fully sanctioned to do so. When one performs his prescribed duty only because it ought to be done, because I have to do, I have this body, I have to do it, and renounces all material association and all attachment to the fruit, that is the perfect renunciation. That is mode of goodness. Okay. So by understanding that, now you can see, hey, this is the right renunciation, this is not right. For our own self, we can see other examples from others as well to see what is right and what is not right. Yeah. So the real motivate, the conclusion is the real motivation for work should be to get purified. Every day we should always not think about how much more I can get. Instead, understand that this work that I am doing, the only purpose of that is to purify myself. So that is the entire summary of Karma Yoga. Now, the second section, which is actions directed by Super Soul, bring freedom from reaction.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
I have one question, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yeah, so the work that we do, it's not according to any varna, right? Or our,
Like that, yes.
what was it?
The age of Kali Yuga doesn't have, doesn't have such work. The
Yeah,
proper prescribed duties.
Yeah, so it's not an occupational duty according to our constitutional position, right? So how can this be purificatory for us? Only by downtiling the results, Prabhuji?
Yes.
Hmm.
So actually the varnashrama that we follow is called Daivi Varnashrama Dharma. Doing everything for divine cause. So this is actually, even this is not, it cannot be followed by ordinary people, the varnashrama. But what we follow is even better than varnashrama itself. That's why we'll come to that. Actually, Bhakti Yoga is an elevator path. By Krishnaizing everything we do, like you work in whatever way it is possible in current day and days, but without attachment and offering the fruits of your action, it comes under Bhakti Yoga directly, because Bhakti Yoga can be practiced by anyone and by any means. Right? Yukta Vairagya. It's called Yukta Vairagya there. So, yeah, it's called Daivi Varnashrama. Whatever you do, but you offer the fruits to Krishna directly. Right? So it is advanced path actually. It is very difficult for people in Kali Yuga to follow normal Varnashrama, but they can easily follow Daivi Varnashrama. Yeah. So in that way, we are actually very fortunate, because we understand this path of Krishna consciousness and how to Krishna is everything. Your own home you can do, your food you can eat, the food you eat can be Krishnized. The work you do can be Krishnized by using for the right purposes with whatever you get out of the work. So that is the advantage of practicing Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the only process that can do that. Yeah. So in this section, Krishna talks about the 5 factors of action. Any action a jiva performs, it is not that he himself is the sole cause of the action. There are 5 important factors. One is the karta, the soul himself. Second is adhishtanam, the body in which the soul is acting. Because without the body, you cannot act. If I'm speaking now, because I have this body and I have this whole arrangement of vocal cords, I'm able to speak. And karanam, the senses. One engages his senses as part of any work he does. Right? Now I'm seeing, I'm speaking, I'm using my senses. Chesta, or the endeavor. Endeavor means, for example, in the past, you may not be expert in some things. Today, you have more expertise in something. So your endeavor matters. Means your past endeavor can improve you to do the same work in the current time in a better way. Right? So chesta is an important factor in how the result of an action will be. It determines, the endeavor determines the work, the result of the work. And then ultimately, Super Soul has to sanction any work. So these are the 5 factors that determine any action and its result. Okay. So when we understand this, okay, we understand that we are not, the soul is not, just because you desire. Soul means here represents the desire to do something. Okay, right? The soul only desires. The body acts, senses engage in service, and your own effort, through the body is going to result in some, the actions results. Ultimately, it happens only because of super soul sanction. Soul is the desirer in this. So he is not the. So this kind of understanding that these 5 factors actually determine, and the most important factor is what? Anybody? Of these 5, don't look down.
Daivam.
Yes, Daivam. Super soul is the primary factor that determines the results of action. So where is the question of expecting good results when you perform an action without the sanction of the super soul? So that should humble a jiva, because you may have worked very hard, you tried your best, but the result need not be according to your own desire, the soul's desire, right? So it understanding these factors helps one to get rid of the illusion that karta is the prime doer, and instead understand that super soul is the prime factor for any results that one gets. So in the ideal case, what is the best course of action for the karta? To follow the dictations of the super soul. So that is the ideal way, which is, how do you follow the dictation, right? So that is the next question, right? Because such actions will be liberating. So right, how do you act so that you follow the dictations of the super soul? Anybody? So are you able to speak to your super soul? Any of you? We know you follow the instruction or dictations of the super soul, the actions will be liberating. But how do we do that?
Prabhuji, we can do that by following the instructions of the Guru and Vaishnava.
Because they are the representative of the super soul actually. The super soul in your heart has provided you the Guru that you see externally. It's nobody else. It is super soul's love's manifestation in the external world is the representation, is the form of Guru. Yes, that's the right answer. So you Guru as well as the instructions of the scriptures, right? So all these are the guidelines for one's, for one's actions in this material world. Yeah. So this analysis helps us to appreciate the position of the super soul and take shelter of his direction in the form of sadhu and sastra. So now we understand. So the second section primarily dealt with the 5 factors of action and how the super soul is the prime factor, and one should humble himself and surrender to the super soul by taking guidance from the scripture or from the Guru, and follow their instructions to perform actions in this world. Right? So that's why we follow 4 regulative principles. That's why we chant every day. We chant every day. We don't forget one day to chant 16 rounds. Why? Because we want to follow the dictations of the super soul. It's actually following super soul. It's not about following this particular Guru or anything. Ultimately, it is the super soul's instruction that you're following. The super soul is the prime benefactor for the jiva. In the so all the way from spiritual world, he's along with you. This whole material body is like a plane. In a war, they use these planes, and you can land in and can blast at any moment. And you are driving this material vehicle in this material world, and luckily you have the guide super soul. And if you turn to him, he will guide you appropriately. If you don't turn to him and you go on your own way, try to navigate the material existence through this, warship, it's quite dangerous. You may actually, get into trouble more than you expect. Okay,
All-
so yeah.
All self-help books talk only about the 4 factors, Prabhuji. They leave the 5th factor.
Yes, endeavor, especially they focus on endeavor,
Yes.
hard work.
Yeah. Passion, you can do it.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody factors in the. Actually, some people factor in the luck. They call it luck.
Mm.
See, many many great people have certain superstitions.
Mm.
Even Sachin Tendulkar had certain superstitions. When he was in the batting field, all the commode door, all the bathroom doors should be open in the wherever he stays, right? You know, yeah, if he makes sure that is there.
Yeah.
So like that, I mean that's all faith.
That is weird.
You have blind faiths like that.
Yeah, they make it abstract, some X factor. Yeah.
They accept the X factor, yeah. So that X factor is actually Daivam.
Mm.
So recently, Prabhu, related to this one, I heard, I think there is a famous book. That name is not coming. What they're saying is, you keep telling what you want to do, the universe is listening to you, and that will happen.
Yeah.
What is that book? I forget the name of their movie is all a documentary is also on
that
that.
is so famous. That idea is so famous. Universe is listening.
Huh?
Universe, I don't know the name, but the idea is
magic or like something like one word. I forget it, but
Secret, Mataji. Secret.
The secret. Yeah.
Yeah.
The universe is listening, and you keep on saying it. Even if I want to become the president of something, you say I am the this thing, and then the universe will take care of it.
Yeah. Basically, they're encouraging to continue to have strong material desires. And when ultimately Krishna sanctions, it will happen, right?
I don't know how we relate that concept to this one. Like I have also seen that if you want a big house, you print a picture of that house and keep on looking at it every day. Or you want to become something, keep on imagining that you are that, then you will become that. So I don't know how is it related to Bhagavad Gita. Is there anything we have why do they say that? Does it really happen?
I don't see any relation. Unless your karma sanctions, you won't get what you want. It doesn't mean that everybody who imagines to become a president will become. It's not even practical or possible, right? Because there is only so many people can become president in their lifetime, right? Just because now I start, so that from today I'll start imagining that I'll become president. Now, say there are 100,000 people who read the book. They're all practicing to become president, right? Along with me. Do you think it is practical? So these are all mental ideas just to keep something going on. This is a way, because generally what mind does, what mind does? Mind always gives you negative thoughts. Is that not fact? So to suppress that, these people, kind of, provide these kind of ideas and ideologies where you just keep asking the universe, and one day it will give you, right? Don't feel discouraged or that you're not. So generally everybody has a desire and everybody wants it to happen fast, and when things are not moving in the direction, they think, oh, it's not going to happen. So this is giving kind of a positive mindset to those people, giving hope that in future sometime it will happen.
So
right?
is it something like I mean, I have not read
my
this book.
opinion, it's just a mental
Yeah.
adjustment.
Like is it like something, basically the concept is whatever we desire, the soul or the super soul is watching, and if we have enough karma for that thing to happen, then Paramatma grants it.
Correct.
So let's say that person is wishing I want a big house, they keep on thinking I want a big house. Then if they have enough bank balance, the Paramatma gives sanctions it. So then it might happen. It will happen, right? So
It is like any other desire, just holding on to your material desires. That's what it is teaching.
so
Which we
basically,
don't want, which we don't want.
teaching you to have more, and whatever desire you want, keep on asking. So it will.
Ah, don't forget them. Keep on asking. Don't read Bhagavad Gita. Keep on asking your material desires.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So which is not the philosophy that we want. I mean, what you are entitled to get, you will get anyway. Is that not fact? It's going to happen one day or other. So
And
why?
what you won't entitled to get also, you won't happen. I mean, we have a
Exactly.
saying in Tamil, like, what if you put oil and roll on the mud, whatever mud will stick on you only will stick. That's all they say. Like
You
that.
cannot change your karma. So that's why very clearly you should better focus on Krishna consciousness in the time you have. Yeah. So in this section, again, Krishna will, provide another more. He will throw more light into how the jiva gets conditioned by the modes in various things. The knowledge can be in three modes. The knowledge one tries to acquire, the knowledge, because knowledge always refers to the knowledge of the soul in Bhagavad Gita. One who understands. Okay, let's read through this. These are very nice instructions. 19 to 40. So in this section, Krishna describes about knowledge in three modes, action in three modes, actor in three modes. Actor means the performer of action, right? So knowledge, action, and actor. Three things in three modes. Let's read about knowledge. Knowledge by which one sees the same spirit soul means the nature of the spirit soul, equally in all the jivas, right? Like a true Brahmana sees the spirit soul in all the jivas. That is the knowledge in mode of goodness. Knowledge always refers to knowledge of soul. It's not about anything else. It means in Bhagavad Gita, right? So knowledge by which one sees the jiva to be different in each body means seeing the body itself as the jiva. That is mode of passion. And then, knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work. So one kind of work as all in all, without knowledge of the truth, which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. So he's just attached to one kind of work, and doesn't focus on the truth. So that is mode of ignorance. Means he's not ready to change himself. And then now action that is regulated by which one is performed, which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, right? Means no fruitive mentality, and without desire for fruitive results, is said to be in the mode of goodness. This is acting as karma yogi. Acting with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires, and enacted from a sense of false ego. From the sense of false ego is called action in the mode of passion. Okay? So one who acts to fulfill his desires with great endeavor, that is mode of passion. One who disregards scriptural injunctions and without concern for future bondage or for violence or distress caused to others, it is mode of ignorance. This is violence in the material world. This is all action in the mode of ignorance. Now, actor, one who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. So there is great determination, means focus on the work, and enthusiasm, right? Giving your best, right? So that is acting without false ego. That is mode of goodness. one who is attached to work and fruits of work, desiring to enjoy the fruits, and who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow, is called a person in the mode of passion. Is always moved by joy and sorrow, always envious and greedy. The worker who is engaged in work against the injunctions of scripture, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, and who is lazy, always morose and procrastinating, is said to be a worker in the mode of ignorance. Imagine, we see people of all these kinds of nature in this material world. And kinds of understanding means what's your thought process. It's very interesting. And kinds of determination. Even determination exists even for a person who drinks wine. He is also determined, right? Otherwise, without determination, he cannot keep drinking every single day. His determination is placed in the wrong thing. So everything is in different modes. So the understanding by which one understands what is to be done and what is not to be done, what is to be feared, which is Maya, and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, that is mode of goodness. Understanding by which cannot one distinguish between religion and irreligion. Means he goes to sometimes Krishna temple, sometimes he goes to some bar, doesn't matter. Between action that should be done and action should not be done. Basically, he doesn't have any discrimination. So that is mode of passion. One who considers irreligion to be religion and religion to be, he will say, oh no, Krishna consciousness, that is very dangerous. But he is fine with everything else, all the nonsense in the material world. That he thinks exactly opposite of what he should be thinking. So that is mode of ignorance. Whenever you see somebody, you show a book, he says, no. That is like, reflection of mode of ignorance. If they see a person smoking cigarette, they don't mind. It's natural, it's okay for them. But whenever you show a book, they'll just run away. And now determination, which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness by yoga practice, and which controls the activities of mind, life, and senses, is determination in the mode of goodness. This is the best determination, right? Means you have determination to chant 16 rounds, or 32 rounds, whatever you are committed to. Wake up early in the morning, that is all determination in the mode of goodness. But if the determination is only to get some fruitive results, economic development and sense gratification, that is mode of passion. Determination which cannot go beyond dreaming, fear, lamentation, moroseness, and illusion, such unintelligent determination means in the dreams he wants to do many things, but in reality he won't do any effort. He's always fearful and lamenting. So this is the material world, this is the nature of people in the material world, especially in Kali Yuga. So this is mode of darkness, determination in the mode of darkness. This way Krishna will keep saying, because this will help us. What is the whole idea of discussing these different aspects, understanding, work, action, actions, worker, all these things in different modes, so that we can relate to ourselves. Do we have any passion in our own life? See how we can tune it back to Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Yeah. So, and Krishna says in verse 40, no being in this or in the higher planets is freed from these three modes. Everybody is working under the three modes. Okay. So you understand and try to elevate through the modes. So that is the whole point. And if you look at all the three modes, the description of mode of goodness directly relates to a person who engages in Karma Yoga. You see, you look at anything, knowledge, action, performer of action, or understanding or determination. A person who is performing Karma Yoga actually acts on the platform of a person who is acting in Karma Yoga actually acts in mode of goodness. Right? How do you get out of it? The best way is to worship the Lord through one's own occupational duties, which is Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. In true renunciation, that brings freedom from reaction. So the whole description is because everybody is in this, stuck in these modes. Slowly, gradually elevate yourself. And the method is performing Karma Yoga. Ideally, performing worship of the Lord through occupational duties. By utilizing one's own karmic propensities in the dutiful service of the Lord, for example, for Arjuna, it is to fight. He's a Kshatriya. For him, it is to fight. He will advance towards liberation by engaging in that way. As one progresses in dutiful, detached work, he is elevated through the modes until he is qualified to give up the work. So this is, again, I'm telling, this whole Bhagavad Gita describes the staircase method, okay, primarily, through when it describes about Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Ashtanga Yoga. It is the elevator method that is, sorry, it is the staircase method that is described. Until he is qualified to give up. So as one engages his senses and performs dutiful and detached work, what happens over a period of time? That dutiful detached work engaged within the varnas and ashramas helps one to free from karmic reactions, and he attains knowledge. Dutiful detached work gives knowledge to the jiva. And that knowledge helps one to perform Jnana Yoga. Now he inquires into absolute truth. Okay. So who can practice Jnana Yoga? One who is not under the modes of action. Right? One who is not forced to act in the material world, forced by his material desires. Only such a person is able to act as or practice true Jnana Yoga. Otherwise, conditioned soul is, is better off engaged in the duties, engaging his senses in the material world. Right? So he can, at this point, he can perform and inquire into absolute truth and perform Ashtanga Yoga through inactive meditation. Okay, so this can be done also. So in the process of Jnana, one purifies himself by the use of intelligence. He uses his own intelligence to inquire into the purpose of life, and by analysis and determination, one tries to detach himself from body and mind. Okay, he would not be attracted by the forms. He goes on to see what is behind the forms. Right? For example, if I show you, a dish of nice aromatic gulab jamun, your mouth will water. You will be very much attracted. You will be wowed. But if I show you the ingredients, the atta, oil, sugar, you will not be attracted by it. Why? Even though all these are the ingredients for this form, the conditioned soul is attracted to the forms in the material world. Behind the forms, the matter is all made of earth, water, air, ether. A Jnana Yogi sees the true reality behind all the forms. And so he is not attracted to them. So in that way, he is able to detach himself from the attraction to the forms of the material existence. Right? So slowly he will become detached from his own mind and body. And ultimately, Jnana Yoga leads to Brahman realization. And Lord describes this state as a very joyful state and is beyond the material desires. So he's always happy in the state of consciousness, Brahman realization, because he's completely purified by use of his own intelligence and detached from the body and mind. Right? So we see Raman Maharshi and such yogis, they're all Brahman realized.
Prabhuji, but in Brahman realization, there is no Ananda, right? There is only Sat and Chit.
No, there is Ananda, but it is that Ananda is 1,000 times more than the highest happiness in the material existence.
Hmm.
Yeah, but relative, so it's all a matter of relativity. Jnana Yogi, the joy, Brahman, the happiness of Brahman, when compared to the happiness of material existence, is 1,000 times better. Okay, in the material existence, one becomes happy, right, at a gross level as well as at a subtle level, right? When one has a lot of power at ego level, so one can, the grossest happiness is having, having a sex life. That is the, the body's level of maximum happiness. Above that is mental level, right? One who is a great author, who gets a lot of recognition. That is mental level of happiness. That is higher than, the gross happiness through one's own body. Higher than mental is, at the level of intelligence, and right, and higher than that is at the ego level. Ego level means one, for example, somebody went into Guinness records because he, or because he went down to the top of Mount Everest. He feels he is the greatest person. He's the greatest boxer. Muhammad Ali said, there is nobody who is better than in this world. Similarly, like, the richest person in the world, that is egoistic level happiness. That is the kind of happiness that is much far higher than bodily level or mental level or intelligence level. Okay, higher than that, 1,000 times higher than that is a person who is a Jnana Yogi. A Jnana Yogi's happiness is much far higher than happiness experienced as the highest happiness experienced in material life. But a Bhakti Yogi at the advanced stages, he is like millions of times more happier than a Jnana Yogi. Because he's
Sorry to
experiencing.
interrupt, bro. One quick question.
Yeah.
On Jnana Yoga. So taking the example of Ramana Maharshi, so can we understand Ramana Maharshi is in Jnana platform, but he is enjoying that ultimate happiness through Brahman realization, but his aim is not on the impersonal Brahman, but his aim is on the Lord Shiva, on the objective of Lord Shiva, because he thinks that the form of the Lord that he believes is Lord Shiva, but he's not on the impersonal Brahman platform, right? He's still thinking that Lord has a personal form, but at the only till that Lord Shiva stays. Is that right understanding, Prabhu?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. It's
because Ramana Maharshi, they worship Lord Shiva. He has the ashram in Tamil Nadu, and they worship Lord Shiva. I know a few people who goes every year, and yeah.
But what he believes in terms of philosophy is actually Brahman realization. He's after that, as far as what I understood. But not taking the specific examples, I'm getting some. One second, let me mute it. Yeah, not taking specific examples. Even if you take the example of some other Jnana Yogis, the whole goal is up to Brahman realization only. It's not beyond that. That's the whole point. Okay, maybe Raman Maharshi, maybe I don't know much about him. He may be a personalist, but focused on Lord Shiva. But in general, Jnana Yoga, the highest goal they aspire for is, even though I accept personal form of the Lord, but they don't consider that as the highest.
Prabhu,
Both
many
of
of these, sorry, Prabhu. Can I say a point, Prabhu?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Prabhu, many of these so-called gurus in India, though they worship Lord Shiva, their thought process is more of Brahman realization only. Because if you see Sadhguru, he celebrates Shivaratri, but then his focus is more on inner engineering and Brahman realization. Likewise, Sri, I think his focus is also on Brahman realization only, though he worships only Shiva.
Yes, all these people, some of them are not even, I don't even think they're after Brahman realization. They're after, just yoga postures. It will help them. Definitely, it will help them to people to come to mode of goodness. I don't think it is much about that. Raman Maharshi, if you see, Adi Shankara, they actually have focus on, meditation and actually following austerities and, trying to elevate one and practice four regulative principles sincerely. But I don't think all the current modern gurus, they actually focus on the regulative principles and all that much. Because they think that, people will run away if they too much focus on that. Yeah. So, but most of these people are Gnana Yogis. They're focused on Brahman realization, not Paramatma or Bhagavan realization. Okay. But interestingly, okay, one can elevate oneself from Gnana Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. If you look at verse 54, that is clarified. After describing Gnana Yoga, Krishna tells what? He doesn't say this is the highest. He says, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nasochati Nakanchati Samah Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktem Lavate Param. Can one of you read? Translation.
One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me.
You see, he is equally disposed to everyone. Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu. And finally, what Krishna says, in that state, in Brahman relation, now you are qualified to attain pure devotion service. What does this mean? It means that now in this state, you can perform pure devotion service. Until then, what you performed is called, who want to say that? Answer. We studied Nectar of Devotion already, just to tell you. There is, what is the bhakti before Raganuga bhakti?
Vaidhi sadhana bhakti.
Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Yeah. So you can come in the staircase method through performance of karma yoga, jnana yoga, and purify yourself and come to Brahman realization and perform bhakti yoga. Or you can directly perform sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, and elevate yourself to Raganuga bhakti. And so this is another method, that's all. So Krishna is saying, hey, all that I said is okay, but this is a platform in which you can perform. He didn't say, oh, Brahmanism is the highest. He said, hey, this is a platform to attain pure devotion service. This is the level you have to come in this path so that you can perform pure devotion service. And now again, later for Arjuna specifically, he condemns, you don't need to follow, just surrender unto me. Towards later verses, Krishna teaches that. So let's go there. Yeah. So in pre-liberated stage, bhakti is a means of purification to free us from false ego. Okay. Bhakti can be performed. Bhakti is the only process. It is same before you become a pure devotee and after you become a pure devotee. The process doesn't change. In the other methods, you perform karma yoga. Once you elevate yourself, karma yoga teaches you to become detached and develop knowledge about the absolute truth. Once you develop knowledge, you see no value in work. You give up, you take sannyas and focus on pursuing Brahman. And slowly you try to understand, you ultimately come to the understand Brahman relation and realize Brahman. Okay, now you come to Brahman realization. But Krishna says that is only a platform to perform pure devotion service. So, which you can also perform through Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti in the pre-liberated stage. In the post-liberated stage, one performs with raga, with attachment and love to Supreme Lord. So that is Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Or, pure devotion service after that. Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti after that. Okay, so you see, if you see Krishna first described about Karma Yoga, and it described about the modes, modes in which various things operate, understanding, action, actor, all these things, so that one can carefully see where they stand and slowly elevate oneself through Karma Yoga. And then he explained about Jnana Yoga. And then he said, hey, this is a platform to perform pure devotion service. Now he is going to talk about how one can work in pure devotion service. Okay, so in this section, he talks about the grave necessity to act in devotion to the Supreme Lord and the result of doing so. Okay, because a devotee who acts to serve Krishna is directly under his protection, meaning Krishna will assure his complete perfection by his grace. There is grace factor only in bhakti. No other path has that grace. And what does Krishna say? You don't need to practice any other method of purification other than devotion service. Devotion service is a unique process where it doesn't require the help of any other method or practice. Right? And so, Krishna says, forced by the modes, Arjuna, you are going to act anyway. You are going to fight because that is your current constitutional position within the modes. So you have two choices. You can surrender to Krishna through performance of prescribed duty, which is fighting for you, and thereby get protection from the Lord, or you don't surrender to Krishna, act according to your own whims, but still you will act under the modes of nature. Still, it's not that you are, modes are still going to control you. But when you act in the second way, you will be entangled. You will be entangled. Okay. So many people is the conclusion of Gita is about making Arjuna fight. No, actually it is not. Krishna convinced Arjuna to act in surrender. He did not inspire him to fight. There is a lot of difference. He asked him to act in surrender to the Supreme Lord. So through these instructions, Krishna says one must act in devotion following Krishna's dictation. If one doesn't, one will undoubtedly act in illusion, because everybody is under modes. You either directly surrender to Krishna and work under him, or indirectly surrender to the modes and work under the modes and get entangled further. So you have no third option. You have free will. Krishna will actually talk about that in the next verses. Let's go there actually. Yeah. This is the only option, surrender to the super soul. This is going to describe how living entity, is carried in this material existence, in this material body, which is like a mission. And because Krishna is a loving father, he accompanies the jiva in this material body as Paramatma in his whole journey until he goes back to the spiritual world, right? So now souls, while he's in the middle world, this is not the real place for him to exist. This is a foreign place. The whole material body and material nature, all of this is foreign to the soul. What is natural to the soul is the spiritual world, where there is spiritual variegatedness and where there is direct service to the Supreme Lord. The whole material existence is a foreign place. He is an alien here. Okay, as this whole material nature is not the realm of his control. Okay, so when he comes to this place, when the soul comes to this material existence, he has a choice either to serve Krishna directly by surrendering him, or to serve him indirectly by subordinating to material energy. Meaning, you engage in the modes like Krishna described, act in the mode of passion or ignorance. So in both cases, the jiva is always subordinate. He doesn't have any superiority over either material nature or Krishna. Right? But if he chooses to serve Krishna, he becomes eligible to go back to God, because his actions will be liberating. Right? Any actions performed in full surrender to Krishna are liberating. Right? But by turning away from Krishna, he will continue to stay in illusion and therefore remain in the jurisdiction of Maya. So the choice is ours. Krishna will not take away your free will, but what you choose, in either case, you will be under the force of either. You will have to, either directly serve Krishna or indirectly serve Krishna. There is no third option there. Yeah. So finally, Krishna, after telling all this, asked Arjuna, hey, I gave you all the instruction. Now, have you heard everything properly? Now make up your mind, okay, on what you want to do next. Yeah. So, in a sense, 63 concludes the Gita message completely. So the entire lessons of Gita is concluded in the verse 63 of Bhagavad Gita chapter 18. But Krishna would not stop there, because for Krishna, Arjuna is a very loving, dear friend. Right? So he now will start revealing with love more and more knowledge, confidential knowledge. He'll give more hints to Arjuna, because this is, this is a very personal, loving exchange between the two of them. Right? It is out of compassion of the Lord. Right? And this is, he already told, you either surrender to me or surrender to the modes of nature. These are the two choices. Now he gives some more additional impetus on why he should surrender. Okay. Yeah, the confidentiality of knowledge, as I mentioned in the first initial description, is based on how much the knowledge reveals the relation between the soul and super soul. So 65 and 66, these are very powerful verses which are repeated in this chapter. Let's read them. So before this, Krishna says, because you are my very dear friend, I'm speaking to you my supreme instruction. What did he say? My supreme instruction means there is nothing higher than this. The most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for whose benefit? Your benefit. He will repeat this for the second time. Man mana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evaisyasi satyante pratijani priyosime. Can somebody read?
Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your devotion to me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend.
Yeah. So this is the highest of all in church. This is called what is it called? This is the most important verse of Bhagavad Gita. This is repeated twice. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this, because you are my very, very dear friend. And then Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma suchaha. Yeah. Can anyone give?
Abandon all that.
All varieties of
Sorry.
religion, but just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear.
Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. The whole idea is, one may be practicing this ritual, that ritual, thinking that, hey, this may be also necessary for me to advance spiritually. No, nothing is necessary. Just surrender to Krishna. That is the ultimate instruction of Bhagavad Gita. I shall deliver you. For getting rid of this sinful reaction, you don't need to do this prayaschitta, that prayaschitta. Don't do any of this. Do not fear about anything that you did in the past, the sinful reactions of the past. Just surrender unto me. I will take care of you. Yeah. So it means no other purification is necessary for one who wishes to take up bhakti. Bhakti itself is most purifying. Yeah, one may feel that he is not qualified to perform direct worship of Krishna and think that he should practice some other process to elevate himself to the platform of bhakti. That is wrong. You don't need to practice any other thing. All forms of religion, yoga, and dharma are meant. You heard, right? You practiced karma yoga, jnana yoga. But then what did Krishna say? Hey, this is a good platform to perform pure devotion service. He didn't say this is the highest. Hey, this is a good platform. From here, you can practice pure devotion service. So all forms of religion, yoga, and dharma are meant to elevate one to the position of eternally serving the Lord. So this is the purpose. You do anything, the ultimate purpose is to surrender to the Supreme Lord. This is the highest instruction. The summary of this section is, the highest realization in transcendental knowledge is to re-establish one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. So this is the most confidential knowledge Krishna revealed, and the final instruction is also given here in 65 and 66. And there is nothing more to be known. And so Krishna gave his final words. The final words are the most important words in any discussion or conversation, right? So he gave that in the last two verses. Now, because he has given everything, he just wants to talk about importance of sharing this message with others. Whom to share and whom not to share, right? So this confidential knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotion service, not to anyone who is envious to me. This knowledge should never be explained to people who are envious of Krishna, okay, and who are not austere, don't have any kind of devotion in their heart, so you should not share with them. But the devotees, out of their own compassion, they sometimes go overboard and actually share this knowledge, not with everyone, but with some of these categories, because one may not be engaged in devotion service, but still he is open-hearted, open-minded, so we will share with them, right? So in this section, Krishna also offers some benedictions for those who read and share this knowledge. What are those? For one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotion service is guaranteed, and at the end, he will come back to me. So we should all share this knowledge with others. We should all share this wisdom with others in our own capacity. We don't need to give classes only. We can share in our own way, right? whenever opportunity presents itself, you meet a person coming to temple, even there you can share this message of Gita, right? And Krishna says, there is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. Krishna says, this is the person that is most dear to me, one who shares this knowledge with others. It need not be directly in speaking. It could be through a good example. If you set a good example for others, then that is also a kind of preaching. And I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. Studying Bhagavad Gita is also equivalent to worshipping Krishna through intelligence. And one who listens, not only study, one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. Of course, we don't want to attain pious planets. We want to actually go back to Krishna. But this is minimalistic benediction that Krishna gives. One who has faith in hearing this knowledge, he will become freed from all sinful reactions and attain higher planets. So after hearing this, Arjuna now will speak, right? After hearing about the benefits of hearing this knowledge. Arjuna is now firmly fixed. Arjuna represents what? All the living entities in the material existence who are faced with dilemma of whether to serve Krishna or to turn away. So this is the dilemma. In every moment, our choice is, should I turn away? Should I act in Krishna consciousness, or should I act in sense gratification? Should I act to fulfill my desires, or should I act in Krishna consciousness? This is the choice that every minute that the jiva goes through. By proper hearing of knowledge of Gita in parampara, one fully understands his position as the servant of Krishna and serves Lord in full devotion. So this is what happens. So one should only hear from this knowledge only in parampara. So that is how one understands. He comes to the same conclusion that Arjuna came. What is the conclusion? I'm going to follow your instruction as it is. You are the highest truth, right? So he will come to understand that he is servant of Krishna and he serves in full devotion. One who does not study this knowledge or hear this knowledge in parampara, he will not come to the same conclusion. He will come to his own conclusions based on mental speculation. This is a testament to how to test whether one has heard appropriately the knowledge of Gita, right? So thus Arjuna, fully fixed in the knowledge, is now prepared to fight in the material existence, right? So what did Arjuna do at the end? He surrendered to the instruction of Krishna. Preparation to fight is a side effect of that, okay? So he surrendered to the instruction of Krishna. And the last section talks about what Sanjaya says, the final words of Sanjaya concluding Bhagavad Gita. Knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, right? It's not mundane knowledge. It is actually Lord's direct potency that helps to enlighten the fallen conditioned soul. This is divine knowledge. One who studies this knowledge experiences direct association of the Lord in their life. Lord's guidance is there in their life every single day. And one who properly hears becomes Krishna conscious. He is always remembering Krishna. He can see Krishna in everything and his life becomes exciting and wondrous in every step. Right? We can see people who are morose and sick because they are in the modes. According to the modes they're acting, based on the modes they are in. Now, once you come to Krishna conscious, naturally you start acting in the mode of goodness or above. So when you are in the mode of goodness, naturally your life is exciting, meaningful, and purposeful, right? Why devotees are happy? They're acting in the mode of goodness or higher, the transcendental mode. As simple as that. But most of the non-devotees are unhappy because they're acting in the modes. Very simple. Whether you are rich or poor, it doesn't matter. You are in the modes. That's the conclusion. Your happiness is not determined by how much things you have materially. The modes you are in matters actually. The modes determine your happiness. So that is like a filter. You may have anything else, but this filter, this will not take you out of it. You have a boundary of happiness determined by your modes. But a devotee comes out of this. So he is happier than any of these people in the material existence. Right? Now you understand why devotee is always happier than the richest person in the material existence. Because he is not under the modes. As soon as you are out, you are happier. Conclusion, it is Krishna's will that is supreme. And whoever surrenders to Krishna's will, there will always be victory, extraordinary power, and morality in their life. So these three things will accompany such a person who surrenders to Krishna's will, just like Arjuna did. Arjuna surrendered. After that, Arjuna won the war, and he won the kingdom. And he was always moral, and he has extraordinary power, and he has always been victorious in the war, including the final Kurukshetra war, because he's always acting in surrender to Krishna. So by the way, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, we see that Sanjaya fully appreciates the knowledge. He says this verse, wherever there is Krishna, wherever there is Arjuna, there will always be victory, extraordinary power, and morality. But after hearing that also, Dhritarashtra's heart doesn't change, even the tiniest bit. Otherwise, he would have told his sons to stop fighting the first day or the second day of the war at least. He wouldn't do that because he still doesn't have faith in Krishna. Okay? So based on our own faith, one makes advancement. So that concludes the entire chapter. There are many, many lessons we learned. I hope you all appreciate the wisdom put together in one chapter by Krishna. Right? Okay. Let's quickly go over everybody. I'll start from bottom here. Shyamukund Prabhu, can you speak? Do you have microphone? I don't see. Maybe he doesn't have. Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So we just both of us dialed in.
Sure goes.
Yeah. So yes, bro. So I think at the end, the main takeaway is no matter what you do, you just have to surrender to me.
It's the conclusion.
Right. So that is difficult for everyone. But as a devotee, at least, we are following that instruction and we are surrendering to the Supreme Lord. So we should be able to please the Lord. Because I was just talking to a person in the farm, and that is when I realized how far that person is, that he has to come.
Yeah.
Because he looks like he is listening to this Ramana Maharshi group's some lecture, and he was saying, Vivekananda and all these great philosophers and all that. They have good philosophy and all. And I said, yeah, they have all great philosophy. Like, some people like Carnatic music, some people like hard rock music. It all depends on each individual's taste. Same way that philosophy also exists to attract certain people. It appears like intellectual, but because it satisfies their ego, and subconsciously they think it is great philosophy.
Your process, yes.
but at the end it is it's not that great. You have to understand the deeper philosophy, because yes, they also talk about liberation, we also talk about liberation, but then the liberation, totally different liberation.
But that liberation is only a stepping stone for performing
Yeah.
pure devotion service.
Exactly.
You don't
So
understand.
that's what I told him. So, and then he was in two mind. I mean, I understand. I mean, people like him, you know,
Yeah, if some people, they are, once they are bent, no, it's very difficult for them to change.
yeah,
It takes a lifetime to actually change.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I told
Especially
him.
they think they're practicing something superior,
Yeah,
and that mindset. So these people condemn Bhakti Yoga, saying this is for sentimentalists.
yeah, exactly. That's what I told him. There is a Prakashanand Saraswati, one of the greatest debater of Vedanta Sutra. He debated with Mahaprabhu and ended up surrendering to him because this philosophy doesn't hold water. But you take your time, you go understand that. But keep an open eye and open mind on Bhagavad Gita. Then you will understand that. That's what I told him. I didn't want to argue with him.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it. So, and yes, Prabhu.
Very good, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing that experience.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Sridhar Gopal Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. Few takeaways from this chapter. There are 5 actions, 5 factors of action: karta, abhideyam, karanam, chesta, and daivam, super soul. These are the very important factors which I was not aware of earlier. Next point is janma karma cha me divyam, and manmana bhava madbhakto. Full be aware of me, worship me, and devote to me, and abandon all religions and surrender to me. And next thing is read Bhagavad Gita and spread Bhagavad Gita based on our own capacities. And next, if you work towards Krishna, that is always victory.
Yeah.
So
Surrender to Krishna. Wherever there is Krishna, wherever there is a surrendered soul to Krishna, which is Arjuna, there will always be victory, morality, and all power.
yeah. Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, that's
Yeah, very good summary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sujata Radhika Mataji.
Like I was half listening, half not able to listen. So I think recently with the test is helping me to study Bhagavad Gita. To be frank, I did not read it for a long time after finishing all the classes. So now I'm reading it. I was just thinking, I mean, why did I not read so long? It was almost, I was attending Madhachandra Prabhu's class long back. During the time we read, after that, I didn't read at all. I mean, we say we are in Krishna consciousness. We do everything, but we are supposed to read Bhagavad Gita. We are not reading. So
Yeah.
I was just thinking I should.
So that is the nature of Kali Yuga. Not only you, Mataji, it's not just with you. Most of us, unless there is a forcing function, we don't do it. That is the way we are. Everything else will take over as priority because that's not natural to us. So this is going to help us to actually make us read these exams. They're really very helpful.
Yeah, I think somehow I was thinking I have to get a taste for that to read, because you have taste for everything else, but not taste to take that book and take it and read. So hopefully, I think I have to work on that to get it. Even after taking all the tests, maybe retake the test again one more time and keep reading it.
Start Bhagavatam. You can start giving Bhagavatam exams.
Prabhu, I think Bhagavad Gita purport and all, I feel the purport, it is important than the Bhagavatam. We read the translation, but purport is where we connect with Prabhupada.
Yeah, that is true. So,
So
when you start answering these questions and working on assignments and writing tests, that's when it helps to read, because you can't answer without reading Prabhupada purports. Then, that becomes like a forcing function. It's always do it like a course. If you just keep hearing, how many lectures did we hear over the many years, right? We did hear thousands of lectures. But what you read for an exam and what you write for the exam, what you write as notes, these are the things that will stick for the longest period in a systematic way. Many people think, you don't need to do a systematic study. Whatever you like, just keep hearing randomly. But nothing really sticks. You are like everywhere. But doing it in a systematic way, now you have the satisfaction of studying, writing, reading, right? Something will really stick in this systematic process. So that's why it's even though we may not have full taste for reading, hearing, still we submit ourselves and continue to hear and read to help ourselves. Yeah, thank you, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Sita Priti Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji. This whole chapter is just a takeaway. The
Can you
key
speak
takeaway-
louder? I couldn't hear.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So this whole chapter is just a takeaway, but the main point that stuck was surrender to the super soul. And there are two ways, like either serve directly to either serve Krishna directly by surrendering, or to serve him indirectly by subordination to material energy. I like these 2 points. And then you mentioned that reading Bhagavad Gita is also a service to Krishna, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we are reading Bhagavad Gita with purport. We just completed last week, few Matajis and me. So it really helped me. And now while we are giving these tests, they help when we read the purport. So I really like that point that it is the service to Krishna when we read Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
And one who surrenders to Krishna. So the last conclusion that you mentioned is there will always be a victory, extraordinary power and morality in their life.
Yeah.
So these are my
Yeah.
key
Krishna's full blessing is there for those. Because as you said, there are only two choices, either directly surrender or not. You have free will. You can say, I have free will, I can do or not.
Yeah.
Choose what I want. But ultimately, you directly serve Krishna, or you indirectly serve him through modes, and accumulate karma in the process. So you have no third choice. So why not directly surrender to Krishna? Very good point. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Saravanan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, lots of takeaways in this chapter, Prabhu. So chapter 2 is a summary, and then again chapter 18 is also a summary. Again, at the end, Krishna says to surrender completely to him. Again, there are the 5 factors of action, as you said. So that is something that I learned new, and how knowledge, action, and actor can be performed in 3 ways, like according to mode of passion, mode of goodness, and mode of ignorance. And how Krishna, though Krishna says man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyajimam namaskaru, and he promises to take us back, but even then, after even knowing about this knowledge, at least I'm not completely surrendered. So even then,
it takes an effort. I mean, it's not like tomorrow we're all surrendered souls.
At least, yeah, I have to take the step slowly.
One step at a time, yeah, with one thing at a time. Yeah. Initially we don't even have any time, right, before coming to Krishna. Now we give time during Krishna, chanting, we are fully Krishna conscious. At least we try to be. And then we offer food. Some part of it is Krishna conscious. Slowly we add on to it. Right? So in this way we will increase our Krishna consciousness in our life.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Nitin Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. It's a wonderful class. I love your teachings, how you are like giving various examples in the various sections. Starts with the karma section where you explain about you are working, you are not getting promotions, few analogies you are coming up with, and you're explaining the reasons why we don't get results. So it's a very good to hear that, because time to time we keep forgetting. As we practice, we don't internalize that result always sticks to the Lord. And as we are just doer, but the karma results comes from various factors of our endeavor as well as our previous life's karma. So it's a good to lighten up that topic again and again and settle down in the mind.
Yeah,
So,
that has to settle in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll always go back to our own attitudes, past
Yeah.
attitudes, right? We keep expecting results all the time.
Yes, Prabhu. So that was a good learning for me again. Second one was about the good explanation on Ananda, level of Ananda for Brahman versus
Yes.
the Bhaktas when we elevate ourselves from 3 modes. So there is a difference. So that's good to have that proper understanding. Then yesterday I was speaking to one of my relatives suffering from some issues, and his son was, though we follow the Pushti Margya, his son is big, not having a complete faith. They go to Shiv, they go to the Ganpati, do various pujas, karma kandas. And then I was just briefly saying that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in the 18.66 verse, Sarva Dharma Prityaja. So he was like, what do you mean? I said that you drop all this work. What you are doing is a karma kanda and going various demigods and asking for help. Instead, have a faith in Krishna, and Krishna will take care of you. So that reconnects the point that you're teaching again. Then that's a wonderful, that's a one of the it's like the main point of the whole Bhagavad Gita is, like Krishna always says, right? By learning all the Vedas, I am to be known. And now you come to me, I'll take care of you. So this is how a beautiful kind of I'm understanding from you that a lot of sannyasis and other various people are doing a Brahman realization, but they are still not understanding the bhakti realization. So, and that is much deeper. So that's great. And the last point I want to just emphasize is preaching and studying, because earlier I remember used to think a lot that I better spend time putting all these concepts in my life instead of thinking about preaching and preaching especially. But I then realized lately that unless you decide to preach, you won't study enough. And if you won't study enough, you won't understand the concepts properly. And if you don't understand a concept, you won't be able to put into action in your own life. You'll always go with some superficial understanding. So it's important to also preach. So that's how you learn more.
That's true.
Yes, Prabhu. So it's a very beautiful chapter and beautiful examples and beautiful class. Thank you, Prabhu.
Very nice, bro. Thank you sharing so many realizations actually. Every one of those are very, very practical. Thank you. It's very beautifully explained. Next, Jai Shri Devi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yeah. So a few key takeaways for me were the point that you mentioned, because many people say that the purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to make Arjuna fight. That's not the purpose. So there's the key essence or the key teaching that Krishna is trying to impart on Arjuna is to act in surrender, right? So acting in surrender is the most important thing that we need to learn. And it is amazing how Krishna, just like when you write the book, an author writes a book. In the beginning, he summarizes what he's going to tell, and at the end, again, he summarizes what he has told. This whole chapter, and then it is. I mean, it is so overwhelming, and it's so his heart is filled with joy to learn how much he loves Arjuna. Even after giving the ultimate instruction, he's still explaining how important it is to be in surrender. What is the advantage of being in surrender? And he's elaborating, because that's what you do when you love somebody really well, right? You tell them something important, but still you want to make them convince and make them follow that. So I think that is the compassion he had towards Arjuna. Yeah, so those are some of the things, Prabhuji. And I also learned about, so I somehow, when I wrote 12 chapter test last week, I wrote that in Brahman realization, there is only Sat and Chit, and there is no Ananda. And then I wrote that in Bhakti Marga, in Bhakti Yoga, there is Ananda, because there is Krishna and there is reciprocation between the Jiva and Krishna. So
that is correct only, because the Ananda, when we refer to Satchidananda, we refer to the highest bliss, which is only possible only in Bhakti. Ananda is realized, but that Ananda is not, that's called Keval Ananda. There is a specific word for that. So Mukti gives happiness, but that's not the highest.
Mukti gives happiness because it takes away from the miseries of this material world.
It's like, suppose somebody is deceased, okay? He had, high fever and so many, he was weak, no energy, nothing, okay? He is in the hospital. First, now whatever he eats also taste is not good. The first thing is to recover from the disease, right? So the disease is like acting under the modes. Now, when he recovers, he takes medicine and recovers. So he's practicing Karma Yoga. Now he is out of the disease. Out of the disease doesn't mean that he's very happy. He needs to still retain his energy levels like it was before, right? He's recovered. First people, even Corona, whoever got, they recovered from the Corona. They're like severely suffering. Now their disease stopped, but their happiness is like they're not functioning like before until say 1 more month, until they're fully recovered, right, to normal health, right? So there is curation of the disease, which is mukti. Mukti means liberation from the modes, influence of the modes. And then the next level is to actually coming to healthy living, right? So that is like bhakti. So liberation stage, like Krishna is saying, so you will come to Brahman. He said, through practice of jnana, you come to Brahman stage. It's like recovering from the disease. Okay. Once you come to Brahman, then you work towards pure devotion service, surrender yourself, and then you actually attain your perfectional state. Right. So actually speaking, it is happiness, but it is not really highest happiness. It's a limited happiness.
Happiness due to lack of misery.
Lack of misery. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, and another point that you mentioned, Prabhu, was like about dictation of Paramatma. You mentioned that when we chant every day, it is mainly to kind of connect with Paramatma, to be able to hear the dictation of Paramatma, and the dictation the dictation comes to us through Krishna from within and Krishna outside, through the spiritual master and through the devotees.
Yes.
So that is also one key takeaway that I will remember.
Yes.
Amazing chapter and amazing summary. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Very good. Next. Yeah, Chaitanya Sundarpur.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I came a little late, so I'll summarize a few things that I picked up and what I think about this chapter. I think it's connected with the point that Jayashree was talking about. Brahmabhuta prasannatma na sochati na kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. I mean, until that verse is the one that clarified for me, because most of the people who say like Brahman is the highest realization, but here in this verse it clarifies beyond doubt that once you reach the Brahman state, yes, you get to that equality and equanimity, but at that stage you must get if you really realize the Brahman, then you must get the devotion to the Lord. Mat bhaktim labate
You can
pram.
start devotion, pure devotion.
So I think that is the one that clearly establishes the hierarchy of all other paths versus this one.
Yeah.
Of course, when we
So every path is like a staircase only, right? In bhakti, you can start with sadhana bhakti and perform, bhava bhakti and prem bhakti. In other paths, you perform karma kanda, karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, purify yourself and get ready to perform bhakti yoga. So the last step is bhakti yoga if you want to get to the highest stage.
Correct.
That's a very good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Anandram Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. So the takeaways that I have is one is which we discussed towards the end of the chapter is studying Bhagavad Gita is like worshipping Krishna, and listening as attentively and with faith will cleanse the reader of all past sinful reactions. So that's one big takeaway that I have. Which was a very it was kind of a revelation for me, and I hope that stays with me. And the second is that modes of material nature will act if you are surrendered to Krishna or not. And the difference is that if one is surrendered, even if the modes of material nature is acting, there won't be any reactions. So that is like action and inaction, right? So that's another takeaway that I took.
Yes. Either you indirectly surrender to Krishna through the modes or directly surrender to him through practice of devotion service, through spiritualizing all of your activities. So these are the only options. Even though Jiva appears to have free will, it's just these two choices. He's always subordinate to both material energy. He thinks he can dominate material energy, but he's actually subordinate to material energy, as well as the Supreme Lord all the time. Either he can act indirectly versus directly. Ultimately, he's surrendered. Yeah, thank you, bro.
Thank you, bro.
Daivi Radhika.
No, she's gone to get dressed up for the temple service.
Okay, so thank you all. So we just completed Bhagavad Gita. And so let me stop the recording.